But we begin tonight with the beginning, or perhaps the end. You be the judge. No matter how you look at it, today has been an historical day for America, as any presidential inauguration is. But this one, atypical for many reasons. For one, it was indoors, presumably because of the weather, though I should note that today's chilly conditions were similar to those at President Obama's first and outdoors inauguration in 2009, calling many to speculate that the move indoors had more to do with concerns that Trump couldn't draw a sufficiently large crowd. Before the official events began, the parade of vehicles carrying the once and future first and second families proceeded down D.C. streets that were practically empty. It was also the inauguration of the first inauguration of a convicted felon. Let's be clear about that, as well as a president elected to 2 non-consecutive terms, like only Grover Cleveland before him. Apart from Trump, we got a clear picture of who matters to MAGA, and that is the billionaires. And during the ceremony in the Capitol Rotunda, tech leaders got prime seating ahead of Trump's cabinet and lawmakers. Folks like Mark Zuckerberg, Apple's Tim Cook, Google's CEO Sundar Pichai, Jeff Bezos, and Shadow President Elon Musk. The so-called populist president kicked off his second term with billionaires who mixed and mingled with cabinet secretaries and Trump family members, rubbing elbows in the warm rotunda. It was quite the scene. While the spouses of some of the lawmakers elected by the American people were shunted to an overflow space in the Capitol. And Trump's actual base cooled their heels inside the Capital One Arena over a mile from the Capitol. Where late today, they were, I guess you could call it, treated to what you might call an inaugural parade. We also heard a message loud and clear by those who were not present. Barack Obama and Mike Pence arrived at the inauguration ceremony alone, without their spouses. Instead, former First Lady Michelle Obama decided to skip her husband's work thing, while the former Second Lady, Karen Pence, rightfully skipped the inauguration of the man whose supporters wanted to hang her husband. As for Donald Trump, who refused to participate in the peaceful transfer of power when he left office the last time and fomented a violent attack on the U.S. Capitol, for which he was never held accountable, his inaugural message was about unity.
Today is Martin Luther King Day, and his honor, this will be a great honor, but in his honor we will strive together to make his dream a reality. We will make his dream come true. National unity is now returning to America, and confidence and pride is soaring like never before.
May King's ghost haunt you. Yeah, today was one of those days when the universe delivers its ultimate irony. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, a federal holiday following on the same day as Donald Trump's second inauguration. Trump flanked by billionaires promising unity while also invoking the racist and violent expansionist doctrine of manifest destiny. And for all his posturing on Christianity, weirdly enough, he didn't place his hand on the Bibles that Melania Trump was holding for him. Instead, he did talk about going to Mars and said that the United States would seize the Panama Canal. It all puts to bed the idea that this is not who we really are, when really it is. Especially as Democrats and elected officials treated this day as a perfectly normal transfer of power, when in fact, it is nowhere near normal. But instead, it's the culmination of a coup that Donald Trump started 4 years ago. Joining me now from the U.S.-Mexico border in California is Jacob Soboroff, political and national correspondent for NBC News. Also joining me, journalist, author, and MSNBC contributor Paula Ramos. Melissa Murray, NYU law professor and MSNBC legal analyst. And Molly Jong-Fast, special correspondent for Vanity Fair. Thank you all for being here. Melissa, I do want to start with you because the legal pretext for Donald Trump to be able to do this at all was that the man who swore him in, John Roberts, essentially declared him to be essentially a monarch, to be essentially king. It does feel like today the missing person at the inauguration was Leonard Leo.
Well, this is, again, the culmination of a lot of different movements. So certainly the coup that we saw started on January 6th, but also a much longer effort to capture the federal judiciaries, to capture state legislatures by allowing the federal judiciary to absent itself from policing partisan gerrymandering. All of this has happened in concert. A lot of this has happened over a very slow and iterative process. They have played a really fantastic long game, and it has resulted in what we saw here today with John Roberts, the man who swears he is an institutionalist, whom we have credited as an institutionalist, but who has authored some of the most disruptive and distortive opinions in the history of this country. The decision that allowed the states to continue to gerrymander their state legislatures without any federal court oversight. And of course, the immunity decision that we saw, Shelby County versus Holder. This is a trio that has essentially set the stage for what we saw today. So the Supreme Court was there, and they should be, because they have had a hand in this.
I do feel that Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson was all of us today, particularly wearing her a beautiful beaded necklace that contained these African beads that mean sustenance and also strength and also protection. She was all of us on today. And, you know, the other Supreme Court case, I think, that was in office, that it was sort of in evidence today, is Citizens United. Because it does feel like the capture of the American presidency and our politics by the moneyed elite was in full effect today. I mean, the oligarchs got better seating than most of the lawmakers and even the future not very impressive cabinet.
Yes, it turns out when you don't cap the money that people can give presidential campaigns, then the oligarchy does in fact give, and they give generously. You saw them in the front row. And I think this is another Supreme Court decision that set us up, that got us here. And it's not surprising, and it is definitely disturbing. And look, they think they're manipulating Trump. They think they can get Trump to do what they want. They are not the first people to think they can manipulate Trump. And, you know, like, look at where Rudy Giuliani is today.
Yeah, indeed. Disbarred and disgraced. But I believe he also did get to arrive. He'll be shorn of most of his possessions because he has to give them to Ruby Freeman and Shaye Moss, whom he defamed. Yes. The dog that didn't, let's talk about a couple of dogs that didn't bark, at least not yet. Paola Ramos, you were in Miami today, where I think there was some expectation that people like Enrique Tarrio and others would be getting pardons. Donald Trump promised on day one he was going to pardon the insurrectionists whom he's been so supportive of. What's the mood in Miami and the level of anticipation there?
Everyone's celebrating. Right now I'm talking to you, Joy, from a Cuban-American restaurant that's right behind me. It's called Las Vegas Cuban Cuisine. People are celebrating, people are clapping. I spent all day with a man called Gabriel Garcia. He's 46 years old, veteran, Proud Boy. He's someone that was sentenced for 1 year in prison for storming the Capitol. And in probably a couple of minutes, hours, according to him, he'll be free. This is someone, Joy, that 2 years ago showed a lot of remorse. He told me himself that he regretted his actions. And right now, he told me that he was lying to me, on record lying to me 2 years ago. And I think that shows you, Joy, in a place like Miami-Dade County, where there was a huge rightward shift, where Donald Trump became, as you know, the first Republican presidential candidate in over 36 years to flip this county. In a place like here, normalizing political violence, it means something. This is the place where, yes, Enrique Tarrio came of age here. This is a place that saw the rise of the Proud Boys. This is a place where we have all seen how Moms for Liberty has been very much involved in local politics. This is a place where mis and disinformation floods local Spanish language radio stations. And so to now understand that perhaps someone like Enrique Tarrio may be coming back here, someone like Gabriel Garcia that has never stepped in prison may be freed today, that has severe consequences in a place like Miami.
Well, let me ask you just one quick follow-up, because the Miami Herald is reporting that Donald Trump plans to end, what has been a very generous asylum offered to Cuban-American migrants as well as Venezuelans. Is that news starting to resonate, or are people just not yet aware?
No, people are not yet aware here, but I personally have been talking to some migrants and asylum seekers that are at the border. And one of the things that I think about is that exactly 4 years ago from today, January 20th, 2021, I was in the Darien jungle and I was walking with asylum seekers that were coming to this country under the belief, that Joe Biden would restore humanity and civility in the asylum process at the border. And now what you're seeing right now, and I know Jacob is there, is that the CBP One app is gone. They're about to dismantle the asylum-seeking process, and so we are about to go back in time. One of the things that I have heard some folks talking about here is this idea that perhaps very soon mass deportations will start. This is a place, of course, where ICE arrests just in the state of Florida completely spiked within 1 year of Donald Trump's first year in office in 2017. It spiked by over 70%. And so I think the point now is to show force, to create a lot of fear, and to send a message, that they're not just in power, but that they're emboldened.
Yeah. And Jacob Silverhoff, let's go to you because you are, in fact, at the border, and you were also at the Republican National Convention when you, I think it's fair to say, a bit disturbed by watching people very gleefully wave signs that said mass deportation now. It was really kind of the theme of the Trump campaign. That has not happened as of yet. He's not signed an executive order ordering mass deportation, but he has spoken very clearly about ending birthright citizenship, about ending the asylum-seeking process and trying to return to remain in Mexico and mass deportation. What's the mood there on the border?
Joy, one action that the president has taken, even though he hasn't signed the bulk of those executive orders or the promised ones about immigration, and I'm just seeing this now for the first time, is that part of a group of executive actions that he has revoked include Executive Order 14001 of February 2nd, 2021, and that was the establishment of the Interagency Task Force on the reunification of families. And let me just translate that for everybody. That was the Biden administration's task force that was set up meant to reunify the thousands of parents and children deliberately taken from one another by the Trump administration, only to harm them as a deterrent to scare other families from coming to this country.